Hello, everyone. This is Robin Luther from Tosa Together. Welcome to Tosa Talks, Building a Diverse, Thriving Community, an ongoing Facebook Live series proudly sponsored by our generous friends at Bostic. Tosa Talks features 3 monthly presentations designed to provide meaningful discussions around racial and social justice issues to support the work of building an inclusive, anti-racist community. Tonight's talk is a special pre-recorded presentation with Brad Schlaikowski on the work of his organization, Courage MKE. Please feel free to add your comments and questions in the Facebook comment boxes, and we'll try to respond to those remarks as soon as possible. Now it's my pleasure to introduce tonight's host, Rebecca Salauda.
Thanks, Robin. And hello, everyone. We are so glad to be here for a discussion with Brad Schlaikowski, co-founder and executive director of Courage MKE. As mentioned, due to scheduling issues, we are recording this presentation on Thursday morning, and you are now viewing our discussion. So welcome, Brad.
Well, thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for coming. So I guess to start, if you could tell us a little bit about what is Courage MKE?
Sure. Courage MKE, the work that we do is to provide resources to LGBTQ plus youth, predominantly around the greater Milwaukee area, but across the state, and make sure that they have the resources needed to be successful young adults.
And tell us a little bit more about how you do that.
Sure. So we have multiple programs. Our largest program right now, our main program is the Courage House in Milwaukee. We in 2019 we opened Wisconsin's first home for displaced LGBTQ plus youth. The youth that live in the home come to us from the social welfare system, whether it's foster care or the juvenile justice system or wherever. About 52% of our kids come from Milwaukee County. The rest come from counties across the state. The furthest child that came to us was from Pierce County, which is 5 hours away. We house up to 5 kids a night, ages 12 to 17. If a child comes to us when they're 12 and they're not reunified with their parents or there's not additional plans for them, they can stay with us until they age out of the system. And our intent with that is these kids have been passed around probably from house to house or facility to facility so many times in their very young age that we want to give them some sort of stability that they haven't had a chance to experience, and a place to call home. And that's the foundation of the Courage House is family and home. Often, I can tell you that most of the kids that live in the house would probably be in out-of-home care in some shape or way, regardless of their identity. But we have had quite a few kids that their identity was the number one issue between the parents and the child. So our goal is to teach our kids that even though as much as it hurts that you're not seeing your parent or your guardian, we teach what a chosen family looks like, and our kids, there's love and hate every single day, just like in a family. There's a lot of laughter, and there's just a lot of doing things together, and that's the first life skill we're trying to help them understand, is that chosen family can be the same thing as blood family.
And how do you do that? By trying to show what a chosen family is? I've heard, like the phrase sister by love is sister by blood, type thing.
Sure.
How do you go about doing that?
A lot of it is simply by modeling the behavior. A lot of modeling behavior and a lot of conversation. I don't know if you have children or anyone out there watching, but trying to tell a 13 to 17-year-old anything, regardless of their situation, is almost like talking to a brick wall, no matter if it's good news or bad news, right? So our staff 92% of our staff also identifies LGBTQ plus. It's not a requirement, just happened by nature. And at the first thing that we need to get our kids to see in order to teach them what that family thing looks like is the main reason why we built this house is these kids have so much to work through. They have so much trauma to go through. They have work through. They have so much therapy and things that they need to figure out what happened. But if their identity or orientation is one of those issues, we believe that kids need to be able to be themselves in order to fix themselves. So the first thing that happens when the kids come to the Courage House is we talk about being respectful. And the best example I can give is, if these kids have never had a situation where they can truly just live their authentic self, and if today I want to wear a blonde wig and a green dress and my pronouns are she, her, and tomorrow I'm wearing basketball shorts and a tank top and a buzzed haircut and my pronouns are he, him, we don't care. This is the time for the kids to be exploring themselves. These are the kids, gay or straight, the adolescent years, these children are trying to figure out who they are. So once they realize that there's no judgment in the house, right? And that we are all in the same boat or have been at one point of our lives, the guard starts to kind of come down just a tiny, tiny bit. And once you start seeing that wall come down, that's when you can start having those conversations of, yes, this person might have upset you because of what they said or how they said it, but let's talk about what you two have all done together and what you do to, what similarities do you have and what do you enjoy doing together. And we always tie it back, like, did you fight with your brother or sister at home when you were at home? And they're probably like, yeah. And then they don't see the two. And we literally just draw the line to connect the dots for them to say, this relationship over here is not much different than this relationship. But our staff, they're the ones that are the true superheroes, right? They are the ones in and day out, 24/7, 365. And they know that if it's two staff members talking, or if a staff member is doing something on a computer in the work area of the house or whatever, our staff knows that our kids are always watching, right? They're always watching to make sure that we're watching, to make sure that's because that's our number one job, is to keep them safe, right? So one might think that they're just being nosy, but maybe a little, but what they're really doing is trying to see if what we're saying is truly what we're doing. And that's what we talk a lot about with our staff, and together, and our staff talk to us about, is we can say that a chosen family is X, Y, or Z, but if I come to work and I give you no attention, then we're completely lying to them, right?
So couple of things just from all of that, just going back, you talked about age out of the system. I'm assuming once they turn 18.
Once they turn 18.
All right. And are there, is there assistance or support, I'm assuming, that you give to kids? I'm thinking, like, both of my kids turned 18 when they were seniors.
Yep.
And I still tell them they're in college. You're still not old.
Yes.
Support that you give them to sort of figure out that senior year. And
absolutely. So one of our residents is one of our residents is graduating high school next week, and it's our first resident ever to hit that milestone while living at the Courage House. We have great organizations. For example, Target donates to us once a month. If it's dinged or scratched or whatever, or the box is a little tore, they donate to us once a month. So for the past 3-4 months, whenever Target donates, we're going through all that product, and we have this child that's getting ready to turn 18 set for an entire apartment, kitchen, bathroom, bedroom. All of their needs are going to be set. But that's materialistic stuff, right? That's stuff, that's just stuff. That's not going to fill that emptiness, because what happens a lot of times when kids age out of the system, they turn 18 and then The system is like, okay, we got them there and now we're done. And that's so sad. And I'm not saying it's all like that, because there are programs of like independent living programs where a child gets an apartment and there's still a social worker that pops in here and there. But that's what we're working on for next. Is we want to create our own independent living program of a multi-unit building of maybe 1-bedroom or studio apartments where we have staff there 24/7, because what we see is these kids turn 18, the state says, here's your apartment, social worker may stop by once or twice a month, here are the rules you have to follow, but there's nobody enforcing them. But these kids then sit in their apartment in silence and are still trying to process a lot of these emotions, and a lot of them are very sad or angry emotions. And they still are only 18 and they're still a child, and they don't know how. So we want to make sure that that will be the next thing that we're working. That is the next thing that we're actually working on right now for our programming, is to provide a place where agencies across the city or across the state can move their kids into these apartments, and knowing that there's still qualified staff that can be there to de-escalate a situation, or just to be there for someone to talk to.
Mhm. Yeah, or I even think of the number of times I get calls from my kids of just, wait, I need to figure this out. I don't know how to do this. And if you don't have if you don't have somebody to call, do you ever get calls back from kids who've aged out and are like, I just don't know what to do right now?
There are a few that keep in touch with us still, and it's so heartwarming. I don't want to say it validates, but it validates every tear or drop of sweat or drop of blood that went into creating this house, right? That's exactly why we wanted to do this. We wanted them to have someone that they can always go to that they feel safe with. And if that's us, then we probably wear that badge.
That's great. So then you talked earlier about some of the kids come, the predominant reason that landed them or brought them to you was their identity, but for many it was not. And if you could expand on that a little.
Well, that's a whole bucket of different scenarios. A lot of times when a child goes into foster care, there's neglect happening, or there's behavioral issues, or the parent just needs support, right? I would say those are probably 3 of the biggest reasons why kids are moved into out-of-home care. And like I said, it's only been a handful of kids that their identity or their orientation were the cause of the conflict between child and parent.
Okay. And so I guess I'm just thinking about to what extent is just that not being able to be with your biological family because of poverty or other things, as much a part of what you're talking about, all of the issues of poverty as there are issues of identity.
Sure. Wait, let me make sure I understand your question. Do you want to know if most of them are in the system because of that?
No, it's just, maybe I'm making an assumption that that foster care that many of the kids who are in foster care are also impoverished. So maybe I should start with my own assumptions.
Sure. I don't have data to prove that. The number one reason kids are in out-of-home care is neglect. And are there assumptions that with neglect comes probably some sort of impoverished situation? Perhaps. I mean, the data can show us that most of the kids in Milwaukee County that are in out of home care come from um, neighborhoods where there's a lot of systemic issues and systemic racism and a whole lot of injustice in those zip codes. And then the foster care community has that data for sure, and we can see that. But I don't want to say yes or no. I mean,
No, that's,
yeah,
no, that's fair. It made me, I'm realizing I'm making assumptions
sure.
myself about, because certainly a family in poverty can be a wonderful, loving, and so
Absolutely.
yes, I am showing my own biases and assumptions.
But you know what? That's okay, because that's how asking questions and having a conversation like this is how we're all going to grow together, right?
Yep.
And that's how we learn.
So then I guess I also want to just step back and you talked about one day a kid identifying with she her pronouns and green hair and a dress, and the next day he him in a basketball jersey. Um, there is, I think, a lot of confusion um, amongst some people about what does this thing mean about gender identity. And if you could talk to us a little bit about that.
Sure. Um, Over the last, I'll say that over the last year, I've had so much personal growth in this area because, as much as I don't want to admit it, I too am now of a certain generation that um, it was what we thought was simpler, just lesbian, gay, transgender, bisexual, right? That's the four that we grew up with, and then everyone jokes about the alphabet soup with LGBTQ plus QIAA, etc. Um, with gender identity, like everything, I believe that it's been around forever, and it's just been one of those things that we've never talked about. Same with, 30 years ago when we finally started talking about being gay or gay people, period. Or even when you talk about racism, it was always just something you didn't talk about, or families just tucked it under the rug. But with gender identity, um, uh, we have residents that use every single pronoun. They answer to all of them, and it's because they say that they say that I'm 13. I don't care. I'm 13 and I'm trying to figure out which one fits best and which one feels right to me. Um, Now, when we talk about identity being transgender, there's a lot more conversation to that. Um, there's a lot more conversation to being non-binary too. Don't get me wrong. I don't mean it to sound like that, but with our transgender kids, a lot of times these kids have been placed in places like group homes or shelters where they weren't allowed to live their true authentic self. They were required to live based on the parts they were assigned at birth. Um, I think that is so dehumanizing, and that people won't even take a moment to understand the additional traumas they are creating for these children or people, adults too, because it happens there too. Um, the with the harm they're doing by making them do that. Um,
Tell us
yeah,
a little bit about that, because I think, I mean, we've seen it in the legislature this week, and we can get into that discussion a little bit. And just there's this huge push of, well, you're the gender your birth certificate says, you have breasts, you're a girl, all of that. what do you mean when, or what do the kids mean and people mean when they're talking about, who they
Sure.
are?
I mean, it's not a choice, right? Just like people say being gay can be a choice. um, absolutely not. You either are, you are who you feel you are, and that's period. Period. I, I don't mean to like make it so simple, but a choice is being born with brown hair and dyeing it blonde, right? If I was assigned male anatomy at birth, and in my entire life, looking in the mirror was not the reflection I saw, I don't know that I can fully explain that feeling because I don't live that feeling that every day, right? But can you imagine looking in the mirror and knowing who you are and feeling who you are, and then the reflection staring back at you as a completely different person? Uh, I can't even begin to fathom it. I can't begin to fathom it. But what I can begin to fathom is it's no one else's damn business but that person's. It's no one else's business but that person's. Why anyone worries about it, why anyone cares about it, they're not do no one is doing anything to anyone except trying to live their life like you and I. And it is that simple, period. It's that simple. Yet we need to, for some reason, make it this big thing. And I don't understand. I just don't understand.
I love that. And so my eldest, and I consistently misgender them. So I may even do that if we're talking today. So just correct me if you notice it. But so they go by they, non-binary. And they were born with girl parts, for lack of a better way of talking about it. And are in a relationship with and consider themselves lesbian or in a relationship with a woman. And then I have a son, freshman in college, who is a cisgender heterosexual guy. And the way I, really dawns on me is it took a while, even though I like to believe that my husband and I are very close to my daughter, to my eldest child, that it took her years to be able to come out to us and first tell us that she was homosexual. And I realized that my son has never had to, so I then said, my son has never had to sit me down and say, Mom, I'm sexually attracted to girls. Because hell, if I would have been able to do that one way or the other, have any kind of conversation like that with my parents, and
Sure.
how difficult that is. And then even sort of the non-binary part, they have never, it made sense to me when they shared that, because from the time they were in kindergarten, they never fit into the girly girl. They never fit into that. They also never were a guy. They never fit into that. They always were sort of trying to fit into this in between of, I'm not those girls, but I'm not those guys. And where do I fit in? And I watched them struggle with that. And now that they're like, this is who I am, seem happier.
When when we can live our true authentic self and be proud of ourselves, that is the most amazing feeling. My experience is I was married prior to a woman, and we had 3 kids, and at 32 I came out. And I love my ex-wife, I love my children. My husband and I co-parent with my ex, like we're like a modern day Brady Bunch.
That's
sa-
beautiful, actually.
Thank you. Saddest day of my life when I left that house, right? Saddest day of my life, but also happiest day of my life, right? Like, that sounds so selfish, but that moment you get to just be who you were born to be without any I don't want to say regret, without any worry or any care. I wanted to go to the top of the US Bank building that day and scream off the top of my lungs that I am gay, right? The moment you get to feel that, it's so exhilarating. It's exhilarating.
Yeah, and when my eldest was first sharing this, and I would think, oh, I don't really think about, I'm just who I am. I don't really have to think about, I don't think daily I'm female, but then I don't have to.
I I like to I think one of the kids at the Courage House taught me this when we first opened 2 years ago. But what a lot of, even in the LGBT community, the older ones like myself and older and not too much younger, we're trying to figure it all out. We're still learning as we go. It continues to evolve and change, right? Like everything else in life. But the way I explain it is it's about hearts, not parts. So you see that person as a person and just as a human before you even see how they identify, right? It's about their heart. And that's the best way I can explain it to anybody.
So you've talked about sort of the mental health issues that these kids are facing. Where is the greater trauma that you see, just this issue of identity? Are you seeing, or just the abandonment, or what are some of the bigger issues, I guess, you are seeing that these kids are going through?
I'm a foster parent as well. So through my experience and through watching the kids come through the house and just through general conversations within the community, a lot of times children are removed from the home before they can talk. A lot of times children are removed from the home when they've already started school. Sometimes it's, they're in middle school or high school. I think when you start talking about what that trauma looks like, I think the most obvious one is you're a child that was ripped from their parent and don't know why. So then you go down these rabbit holes of, am I the reason why? Is it my fault? Is it my fault? Is it my fault? Or does my parent not love me? And that's where we have to start, regardless if there's already behavior issues, regardless of if you're gay or straight or trans or cis. The trauma starts the moment they rip I don't want to say it like that. It's not what I intend. I'm very sorry. That you were removed from your home, from your family or your guardian, that person that you've come to learn and understand and have been taught is there to protect you through thick or thin, right? That's where the trauma starts, right at that moment. If it didn't already happen before due to whatever was happening in the home, right?
Right. Whatever was happening that resulted in your removal.
Right.
Now, are there complementary services that add to the support that you give to your residents?
Sure. So every child that comes with us, I shouldn't say every, because sometimes they really truly don't need it, but most of them come with a team of people, which include a social worker in some way, shape, or form. And then there's probably one or two of them on their team. A lot of them have to come with a therapist or some sort of counselor. Depending on the county they come from, they might have what's called a crisis stabilizer. So if they can feel themselves escalating and ramping up and we're about to hit that severe crisis mode, they can call them. And a lot of times that person, what their job is to come in and just sit and talk and be with or take that child in the car and go do something to get their mind off of whatever it is they're focused on. It is an absolute amazing program. However, most of those folks, they work a full-time job or they have 50 kids that they're in charge of. Probably not 50, I'm probably exaggerating, but and there's not always a guarantee that they can come when you're feeling a crisis happen. So although we canceled all of our strategic plans for 2020, the one thing that we did still do is we launched our own crisis stabilizer program, and we're the only group home in Wisconsin that has our own team. So we have six folks who are so well qualified to de-escalate situations. We have them on call from 5 to 9 during the week, and then 5 to midnight during the week, and then 9 to midnight on the week on Saturday and Sunday. And then so no matter which, they rotate being on call, and that guarantees us to have someone there in less than 20 minutes.
Wow.
Since we rolled that program, and our program director Jean has done an amazing job of creating it, we've avoided probably almost 20 police calls or hospitalizations with our residents. And I don't know if you've ever been to a certain mental health facility not too far from all of us. It's not my favorite place to send anyone ever, but the most important one is removing that police involvement from any of these situations. Because if we're already at a 20 out of 10 in our escalation, adding a police officer is like pouring gasoline on a bomb to me, because most of our kids have had some sort of interaction with the police. Probably not necessarily always because of something they did, but there was interaction, and regardless of what anyone thinks, it wasn't positive for them, right? So we're really, really proud of that, especially have not calling the police. Now, are there times where we're going to have to? We are not a residential treatment facility. We don't have a team of 10 staff members on site every day. There's literally 2 staff members, so for the 5 kids. But when we can look at ways that our small little organization can help, especially in a time of all these social injustices that we're talking about, it's the little things that all of us do like that are going to help make this world better, because mental health does not require handcuffs. It requires more of a hug, right? And that's the way we're trying to operate.
Yeah, I mean, the statistics of the number of, as we've been talking about, police shootings that were really mental health, people calling for mental health reasons. So that makes total sense. And I just want to also uplift something you sort of casually mentioned, but I want to make sure it gets out to folks here. You said you had to put on hold a lot of your strategic planning for this past year. And my understanding has been that one of the issues that has come about from COVID is some of your funding is dried up. Is that correct?
Severely. When COVID hit, we had just made our strategic plan in February of last year. And then we all just sat down and said, we have no idea what this is going to do. Like every business, small or large, we needed to make sure that we could keep the doors open and the lights on as long as possible for these kids, because if we close that we just failed 5 kids then. So, you know, about 50% of our funding comes from direct community donors, just folks that, you know, donate $20 here, you know, do a monthly thing of $20. But if we're all not working or all getting furloughed or laid off, we also don't have the money to help organizations. So we see that we're still trying to dig out from that right now. And yeah, we're seeing a little bit of an uptick, and you know, June is always a big fundraiser month for most LGBT organizations. I think we're all relying heavily on that a little bit, but it's very scary. You know, we did go the route of a PPP loan. We know, we're pretty confident that it's going to be forgiven because it was used 100% to make sure our staff were paid. You know, there were times during COVID where we had residents get sick, and thankfully we have a house behind our house, which we use as a resource center, like an art room and things like that. But we got an exception for the state to make that, literally we made it into a makeshift hospital. So our staff only worked back there if they volunteered to work back there. But there were times we were paying double the amount of staff, and sometimes one staff to one kid, because they were working in the back house when you have 2 other staff working in the front house. I mean, like any business, payroll is our #1 expense, right? But we are literally have someone there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 a year. Like, there's not even, we don't even close for holidays because the kids live there. But
Most kids don't have parents that are there that often.
right. So the COVID, I'm proud of the team for everyone trying to buckle down on spending. You know, at the Courage House, we a lot of group homes, food is cabinets are locked, refrigerators are locked, bathrooms are locked. But we don't do that. Everything is open for these kids. Now, did we keep the cabinets as stocked to kind of ration things out, you know, and to help the budget a little bit? We did. But the kids, the staff, everyone, whether it's something as small as hitting the light switch to leave the room, which I have 5 children of my own, the oldest being 23, and I still can't get that across their head. The family came together, and the family, I mean, the house, all of our supporters, we call our supporters family. Our kids, the kids at the house refer to them as family, but everyone has still come through whenever they can, even if it was to drop off food or whatever it was. And I want to make sure that everyone knows, I know that I'm not blind. We're not the only nonprofit that's struggling from this. And if I gave anyone advice, if there's one that's near and dear to your heart, donate something, because everyone is doing wonderful work no matter what they're doing, and they're probably struggling too.
But if they're inspired by what we've been talking about,
of course,
there's information on your website, which we'll put in the chat, couragemke.org, is it?
Yes.
Where you can certainly donate, and it sounds like any amount is more than welcome.
Mm-hmm. Any amount is. A penny today is more than I had yesterday.
So other than, obviously, cash is king, money is always good to help, other ways that people who are watching this can help you out?
Absolutely. So volunteering is always the top of my list. However, we are just starting to ease our way back into letting volunteers in the house. Thankfully, all of our kids are over 13, so they got their first shot last week. That's very exciting for all of us. But volunteering for events, we'll post things on our social medias, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Food drives always help, because that also is helping, financially, regardless if people understand that or not. Another program that we offer is our Courage Kit program, and it's just a gallon-sized bag filled with travel-sized toiletries, hand warmers, mints, Band-Aids, toothbrush, toothpaste, soap, deodorant, whatever. And we hand those out to any organization that supports youth. Doesn't matter if it's LGBT or not. We do a lot of those for MPS. They see a 10% increase every year of their homeless student population. And I have family that work there, and sometimes when these kids get these little toiletry bags, they light up like it's Christmas. So we brush our teeth twice a day, or once to whatever you brush your teeth, and we just do it not thinking about it. But when you see a child get a toothbrush and want to go brush their teeth because they haven't done it in a really long time, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, I you're right. I can't imagine, because that's just not, I don't budget for buying a toothbrush.
Right. I don't either. And there's families that can't, that's probably one of the last things on their budget list, right?
Okay. Now you have me distracted.
Sorry.
No. So how, as far as putting those kind of things together, how can
Sure. If anyone's ever interested in doing any kind of drive, I would just ask to send an email to info@couragemke.org.
okay.
And we will get back to you right away. It's those kind of things it's those little things that we can do at the Courage House, and our kids make the Courage packets. We require our kids to do a community service project once a month. I wish I had more time, because I'm going to tell you about all of those that they've done, but our kids are so passionate about it, because it's important for them to understand what pay it forward means. So much love went to building that house for them that they need to return that every day of their life. So
That, well, actually, just on that, and I know we're getting to the end, but how do you convey that? Is it, here you have an obligation to do this, or just that we all as humans have obligations
Sure.
to do this?
It starts with we all, right? And there's sometimes protest. But we're very open with
They're
the
teenagers.
kids. What's that? What
Because
was
they're
that?
teenagers.
Oh,
Because
right,
they're kids, there's protests.
right. But we're very honest with them on how that house opened. That house, we raised enough cash in 2 years to pay for that property in cash. And then you have all of the volunteers that came and tore down walls or tore up floors and painted walls. And then you have places like Kohl's who came in and decorated the entire thing, and the places like Lowe's that came in and gave us all these fixtures and appliances, right? So we're very open with the kids of the cliche of the house that love built. This is literally that house, literally. Um, we talk about our outside Courage family, our supporters, all the time, and the things, like we show them the messages they leave them on our Facebook page, if it's their birthday or whatever. But they most of the time, by the time we're all planning the quarterly event, they're all in. This past Christmas they collected enough presents for 134 kids, and that was 700 presents for 134 kids. But when those kids come home from delivering those presents to the families and they're on the couch crying because the mom was crying, they get it. And they say they hate and love that feeling at the same time. And I think that I agree 110%.
Well, you're just gonna have me crying through this whole last 15 minutes, aren't you?
So, I would think that I wouldn't cry about it anymore. Now my thing is, if I have no emotion about it, it's the I need to not do it anymore.
So are there thoughts about growing your capacity to serve more kids, or is there sort of, we can really focus on these 5 and that's where we're putting our focus?
We would like to open Courage houses in the larger cities throughout Wisconsin, like the Madison area, Fox Valley, Green Bay, Eau Claire, things like that. However, right now the federal government has gotten involved in making sure that group homes across the country are operating with some sort of cohesiveness. Excuse me. So they're requiring us to become nationally accredited, and that's fine, except I don't know if anyone out there has worked for a place that went through accreditation. That is our #1 focus right now, because it has to be done in October. But the beautiful thing with that is that, if a group home doesn't get accredited, they might not get referrals, or the counties might not refer kids to them, right? But the beautiful thing of being accredited is the name is accredited, not the building. So no matter what, once we get accredited, everyone that we open across the state will also be accredited. So we're really excited about that. I'm going to joke about the amount of work it is to go through it, but it's just something, we all have something at work that we're like, oh, and that's my but yeah.
So what is your role with Courage House? Is that your full-time job, or?
Sure. So we started Courage in 2015. I've been in corporate America most of my adult life. And my husband has been in retail management as a district manager forever. We both are doing both jobs full time. Last January of 2020, I left corporate America to go take on this new role of executive director. And I was so excited. And then I got sent home for a year. So, my role, up until middle of last year, I'm the only office person. So someone's responding to the emails or social media or marketing or payroll or things, networking and building stronger relationships. That's my job. But now I have a community relations and events manager, Lewis, who without him, I think that I would be drowning. And without my house director, I'd be drowning. I love going to the house and spending time with the kids. I wish that I could do it more, and that I'll be able to once we grow a little more and I can remove some of these things off of my plate. But sometimes, they all know that Brad's the executive director, blah, 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 blah. But I also don't want them to be like, I don't want them to mom and dad, Gene and I, like, I'm mad at Gene. Because it's going to happen. It does happen. I'm not even going to lie about it.
She said this.
Right. Exactly. I'm telling everyone, it is no different than being in your own home most days. Most days.
So there is there are pushes out there to allow other group homes to say, we don't want you because of your how you identify or things like that. I'm sorry, I meant to look and see if they were trying to do that here. I know that they've been too focused on who can play sports or not lately. So what do you know about those efforts? And I guess I can imagine what you might have to say about it.
Sure. So when you open a group home, you fill out this form with your licensing packet of target demographics, right? And that ranges from AODA down to, nothing, basically. Thank God that's not happening here, for one, because what you're telling me is you don't care about a child, period, right? That's the way I look at it. And maybe my mind is too simple because I can't even begin to fathom where the hell they're even thinking of this stuff from. Like, have you ever been in a group home? Have you ever been part of the foster care community? Do you understand what is happening in this community? Because the system is so broken. How about you worry about fixing the system for these kids versus where they're going to lay their head on the pillow because of who they are? Every politician knows that the system is broken, but none of them want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. So that's the first thing I have to say. But when we started getting licensed, we were reading the licensing book and it says boys have to sleep with boys and girls have to sleep with girls. And I get why that came about whenever it came about. But I said to them, I was like, in this house, that rule is completely the opposite of why you created that rule. Because, well, our kids are gay and you don't want them doing things in their bedroom. So we got an exception for that. Our kids can, and it normally works out that the boys share a room with boys or whatever. But we did have to file a request for an exception with the state because we wanted our transgender children to be able to choose the bedroom that they felt most comfortable, or the roommate that they felt most comfortable with. And it varies sometimes. It does vary, but it's a conversation that we have with both kids to make sure that they're both comfortable. And the state didn't even blink an eye. They signed off on our exception right away. They didn't challenge us at all. But it was really important to us because kids change in their bedrooms and we want them to be comfortable. Now I'll say that kids change, but I'm not pretty sure, most of the time they're changing by themselves anyway. So, but we were nervous to file that exception because we didn't know how it was going to be received, but we had an amazing licensing worker, and the people above her at the state licensing office, they're all so fantastic about that, that we had no issues. So we're really proud to know that our kids can be who they are when they're in their own personal bedroom.
Good. Yeah, I hadn't even thought about, but yeah, you're obviously right. When you have the boys' dorm and the girls' dorm, that might not necessarily work.
Yep.
So then, because I've alluded to it, and it's been in the news this week, this whole thing about we can't spend time on making sure we have money for social services, but let's have 3 different hearings on who's going to be competing on the high school track team. So has that whole issue about sports been an issue for any of your kids? And I guess I know from conversations before, you definitely have opinions about that. So I just, in light of the fact that those have been hearings this
Sure.
week, I thought I'd give you a chance to share your thoughts.
So let's make sure that everyone understands where I'm at with this. It is absolutely disgusting. It is pathetic, and I'm sorry that I'm sorry, but these old white men are intimidated by some beautiful little girl or young lady that wants to run track. Like, what is your problem? What? Okay. No, none of our kids at the house have been affected, but we could, with the kids moving on or going wherever they go, we could get a child that is into sports, and that could be the case, right? I don't understand why they're so afraid and they're only focused on girls. I don't. There are plenty trans male athletes that will, and even high school ones that will probably whoop me in any sport that I tried to compete with them in. But that's not an issue to them. So let's call this for what it is and just say that they're disgusting human beings that don't know how to treat people as people. Yeah, it's disgusting.
And and you make a good point. I mean, where are the women out there saying, wait a second, what do you mean?
Yeah, I mean, there's a high school. It just happened. I think he just won his 3rd state title in high school wrestling, and that's huge. I mean, come on. What? Oh God.
A transgender male, or I should say he's male,
He's
but
male. He was assigned female at birth, but he's male.
and he
And
could
he,
both
I
of
think,
our butts very easily, it sounds
I won't even try to argue it. Like,
like.
I'll pin myself. You don't even have to do it. But I mean, that was his 3rd state title, and this fragility that they all have for no, I don't even understand why. They need to do some research on being transgender, anything about it. They need to do research on, if they are taking hormones, what the hormones do to their body. They need to do research, period, because they are so, I mean, they sound uneducated when they're talking about it.
Well, it all stems from you go to freaking out about bathrooms.
Yep.
And I'm like,
You know what?
I go to the stall and the door is shut. I don't know about it.
Do you know that every single one of us has a unisex bathroom in our houses? I mean, is it a group bathroom? No, but men and women and non-binary people use my bathroom at my house all the time. God. And then okay, I'm sorry, I'll stop you after this, but if you go to Summerfest or you go to a big festival, and there are a lot of women that have no problem running into the men's room because there's not a long line, and I guarantee you a lot of those women are upset because someone who is transgender are in the men's bathroom. I mean the women's bathroom. Let's just call hypocrisy what it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, I have no patience for that. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I mean, especially when I mean the such incredibly serious issues, as we were talking about before. When you have, you were saying, the uptick in homeless kids. I just, trying to imagine, I was thinking about a lot of the talk about kids trying to, oh, let's just all go online. There's no problem. I do some unemployment work. And they were like, oh yeah, you just do your unemployment online at the beginning of COVID. Well, that's assuming that you have access to online. And at the beginning, the libraries were closed, which was your only public access. And so they're like, well, why aren't you, doing all of these online things? Well, maybe I don't have that access.
Right.
Or maybe it's my husband and I actually usually go to the office. I've just worked from home the last couple of days. But if my husband and I are both in our house, it's really hard for us to work from home because we're both on the phone. And we're two adults in a house trying to imagine, people in a small apartment where you have people trying to work and multiple kids going to school. And
Yeah.
but yeah, let's worry about bathrooms and
And I think you said it best. I mean, think about the amount of money that was spent yesterday on salaries, on what it costs to raise that in the house, to keeping the lights on. Like, if you put it all together, how much was spent on trying to
Which
fight,
of those care packages could have been made?
or how much? Look at how much money you could have invested in mental health for adults and children, but we don't have the money for that. Okay.
Well, we're coming to the end. And I know you have a lovely camping weekend. It's supposed to be sunny. It might be a little cold, so I hope you have some good.
We do.
Okay. So this has been so much fun. And I hope we can have you back again sometime.
I would
And
love that.
also just to get together with you another time and we'll just rant like crazy.
Let's do that. Let's do that for sure. For sure. I'm so glad that our paths in life's crossed. This was a pleasure. It was.
This was very fun. So, and I just want to do one more shout out. And you were so kind in your shout out about donating and just donate where you can and where your heart is. But if you're not sure where that would be, seems like, do go to Courage MKE. There's all sorts of resources there. And it looks like in the past, once we can get back in person, it looks like you've had some really fun in-person festivals and things like that as well.
We have one on November 5th. We've been, the health department's saying green light still.
Okay, so what's going on November 5th?
It's our annual gala. And our gala is not a stuffy sit down, wear a tie gala. It's the it's the one time a year our family gets to come together. And yes, we do some talking and celebrating together, but I love it more than my birthday. The folks that come are either matching the theme or the leather group is there, or the professionals are there, the younger generation's there, and everyone is just intermingled into this beautiful ball of love. So this year, we're calling it Many Hearts, One Family.
That's lovely. Well, we will try and remember and remind us when the time comes.
We will.
We will definitely do some promos and sounds like a great time. So I hope all our viewers will enjoy us. Oh, I can't even speak anymore. I hope all of our viewers will join me in thanking our guest, Brad Schlaikowski. Did I pronounce that right?
Absolutely.
Good. With Courage MKE. Thanks so much, Brad, for taking the time to talk with us today and for sharing your great information and experiences and insights.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks also to you, our Facebook audience, for your time and interest. We will do our best to follow up with any comments or questions you have included in the comments section this evening. And if it's all right with you, Brad, we'll reach out to you once you're back from your vacation. If there are any questions or comments to share with there.
We'd love to.
And as always, a special thank you to our generous friends at Bostic, whose support makes the entire Tosa Talks possible. Plan on joining us Tuesday, June 8th. Tosa Talks will welcome the owners of Grounded Soul Yoga, Embody Yoga MKE, and Legacy Gym, who will be talking about breaking down barriers in the wellness world. Then save June 16th for a very special presentation that I'm particularly excited about with national speaker Vincent Sutherland, who's the director of the Center on Race, Inequality, and the Law at NYU Law, speaking on the background and future of policing practices. Remember, you can find a recording of tonight's presentation and all Tosa Talks presentations on the Tosa Together YouTube channel. Feel free to reach out to Tosa Together anytime through our Facebook page, our website, or by emailing us directly at tosatogether@gmail.com. This is Rebecca Salauda with Tosa Together, and it has been my pleasure to be here with you and our special panelists, as well as all of you. Thanks for being a part of Tosa Talks and our mutual effort to build a diverse, thriving community.